When he was born, there was nothing around him. When he opened his eyes and stretched his hands and stretched his feet, he couldn't see or touch anything, for nothing was there to be touched. He rolled right and left and up and down, but again nothing came. Nothing was there. Nothing but white, fluffy something. Clouds, he called it. And he spent days and nights watching them, sometimes move, sometimes be still. But over time, he grew bored and impatient. He was a baby. He wanted to play and laugh and roll. And that just was not what was happening for him. So as babies do, he stretched his arms and started grabbing the clouds around him. And he grabbed some from there, and some from over there, and some from here, and started pushing them together with his both hands. Sometimes I would try to escape and become more fluid and emptier, and sometimes I would get denser and push his hands away, and he'd giggle and laugh. They were playing, but yet he persevered. And soon he created many, many shapes, leaving them all by his side. And he made what any child would have made. He made something to play with, something he could also call his friends. And some of his friends had long necks and long legs and tails, and others were small, grey with little whiskers and round ears and a big tail. Others had spikes, and some had peculiar patterns that he drew, stripy or square. He gave scales to others, and to some beautiful drawn furs. And soon he had so many around him that he was overwhelmed with joy, and he kissed every single friend he made and hugged them, and the love that was in his heart sparked movement in those shapes, and they came alive. And the boy started to play with them, and they played with him. But time passed, and they all grew bored after a certain time. They explored every corner of nothing that was around them. And they needed more, but no matter how many shapes he made from the clouds, it was not enough. It was just making more of what was already there. And one day, he decided that it was time for them to go and explore somewhere else. So he asked all his friends to come with, which they did. And jumping from cloud to cloud, they went far and far and far. Until suddenly, his silvery white existence got pierced by a golden light. What is this? He thought. He never seen such a color, for everything until now was just shapes of white, and different shades of white too. He got so fascinated, and they all moved quick and fast, and got right to the clouds through which the light was piercing, and gently moved them aside. And there, looking down from his cloud, he saw her. When she was born, there was so much around her. She opened her eyes and couldn't believe the colors that were present. There were so many of them that she had to close her eyes, for she was afraid she would explode. They were so vibrant and alive. The reds, the greens, the blues. There were colors that she couldn't name or never knew, all glistening and beaming around her. Soon she learned how to play with them. All the shades of red, she put her hand through them and called them in closer. And like threads they would follow, collect themselves around her, intertwine around her arm, sometimes come and sit around her knee, and then playfully whiz away and fly away. And so she learned that they wanted to play. All the colors did, not just red. And then the blue came, so gentle and soft. It just flew underneath her, holding her ever so slightly, moving her and rocking her from side to side. And the green arrived with its vibrancy and shoot right through her, that made her explode in color. And like little beams and little leaves would go out of her and shimmer would go far and wide, emerald, deep green and lighter, so many shades. And the yellow came, golden, almost unseen, iridescent in many places. It will wish around her, move her so quick that she would be swept off her feet, and they would both laugh. And sometimes when that would happen, the blue would catch her, and the green would gently help her land, and red would come around, and all of them would start dancing and swirling and twisting and being overwhelmed with joy, moved in this ecstatic dance of connection. And over time they played so much that they all started to take different shapes, and the red started to come in more and intertwine with green, and soon that created hills, created volcanoes, and fire, and the green created land and earth. And as that lay down, so did the blue gently came in, cooling off the hotness of red, and became water. And as she sat there, moved by the gentle yellow, that brought in space and coolness and became air. And as they played and played and played, there came a point where all of them felt that there was so much that they've done, and no matter what else they tried, they were just doing more of what they already had. And they also grew impatient and a bit bored. And one moment, when all of them sat discussing what else can they do, how else can they play, she suddenly jumped up and said, "Well, what else is possible? What if there is more? What if we look up and see what's possible there?" And as all of them lifted their beings up, they suddenly saw that the bright colors were pierced by the coldness and coolness of white, not the color that they had before. She jumped up and followed the bright yellow that carried her there. And as she came close to the crack where the white color was coming from, she gently pushed it aside and saw him. And although two neither knew each other or neither seen each other, they recognized each other instantly. They heart lit up in this deep sense of knowing that that was the right moment. And she grabbed his hand and he grabbed hers. And she pulled him down onto the lands that she sat on. And the winds took all of his friends, and all the creatures that he created came down the golden light onto the green earth. And as they touched the ground, the trees blossomed, pushing through the earth soil. They came flourishing upwards. The flowers came to be. And different plants. And the two of them, the boy and the girl, laughing, started to spin around and spin around. And as they danced, more and more creatures came from the silver light, and more beauty, more and more colors arrived through the golden light. And they danced and danced and danced. And the lands went further and further and further, and so did the winds, and so did the waters, so did the fire, so did the creatures, so did the plants and the flowers, spreading the seeds and laying the eggs and birthing the next ones. And everything multiplied and grew in abundance as she danced with him and he danced with her.